What's going on, YouTube? Before I get into the video, let me remind you, if you like my videos, hit that like and subscribe button. Also, if you feel the need to support me, hit me up on my Patreon at patreon.com/uncommonramen, capital U, capital R. I do all of this in my free time, so any amount of support can help me bring more of this content to you more often. Okay, today we're going to be taking a look at Tatsunari Toad Rider. This is a Kamigawa Neon Dynasty commander. The color identity is going to be black, blue, green. It was something that had kind of piqued my interest back when it first got released, because it looked really interesting, but it was never anything that I followed up on, so it was very much like Tetsuo. So today I decided to put this guy together, and well, actually I guess I put it together beforehand. I got a chance to test it. It was pretty cool. So let's take a look at Tatsunari Toad Rider real quick here. Okay. Tatsunari Toad Rider is 2 and a black. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, if you don't control a creature named Kaimi, create Kaimi, a legendary 3/3 black and green frog creature token with whenever you cast an enchantment spell, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain a life. And for 1 and a hybrid green-blue, Tatsunari Toad Rider and target frog you control can't be blocked this turn except by creatures with flying or reach. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to try and slam out enchantments, get Kaimi on the field, get a lot of value out of Kaimi, and get some value out of pseudo-unblockable evasion here. It's not really, obviously, again, if they have reach or flying, they can be blocked, but yeah, we're going to try and do something like that. Okay, we're going to start out with the creatures, which is going to start with a Destiny Spinner for 1 and a green. It's a 2/3 creatures and enchantment spells you control. Can't be countered. For 3 and a green, target land you control becomes an XX elemental creature token with trample and haste until end of turn, where X is the number of enchantments you control. It's still a land. We got Dina Soul Steeper for 1 black and 1 green. It's a 1/3. Whenever you gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. And for 1, you can sacrifice another creature, and Dina Soul Steeper gets +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is the sacrificed creature's power. We got Doomwake Giant for 4 and a black. It's a 4/6. It has Constellation. Whenever Doomwake Giant or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, creatures your opponent's control get -1/-1 until end of turn. We got Eidolon of Blossoms. It's a 2 and 2 green for a 2/2. Has Constellation. Whenever Eidolon of Blossoms or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, you get to draw a card. We got Eutropia, Twice Favored. This is 1, a green and a blue for a 2/2. It has Constellation. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. That creature gains flying until end of turn. We got Gem Razor for 3 and a green. It is a 4/4. You can mutate this for 1 and 2 green. It has Reach and Trample, and whenever this creature mutates, destroy target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls. We got Generous Visitor for 1 green. It's a 1/1. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you put a 1/1 or +1/+1 counter on target creature. We got Gloom Shrieker for 1, a black and a green. It is a 2/1. It has Menace, and when Gloom Shrieker enters the battlefield, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. If Gloom Shrieker would die, exile it instead. We got Grim Guardian for 2 and a black. It's a 1/4 Constellation. Whenever Grim Guardian or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses a life. We got Grolnok, the Omnivore, for 2, a green and a blue. It is a 3/3. Whenever a frog you control attacks, mill 3 cards. Whenever a permanent card is put into your graveyard from your library, exile it with a Croak counter on it. You may play lands and cast spells from among cards you own in exile with Croak counters on them. Got Herald of the Pantheon for 1 and a green. It's a 2/2. Enchantment spells cost 1 less to cast. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you gain 1 life. Got Ivy, Gleeful Spell Thief for green and a blue. It is a 2/1 with flying. Whenever a player casts a spell that targets only a single creature other than Ivy, Gleeful Spell Thief, you may copy that spell, and the copy targets Ivy. We got Nylea's Colossus for 6 and a green. It's a 6/6 as Constellation. Whenever Nylea's Colossus or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, double target creature's power and toughness until end of turn. We got Protean Thaumaturge for 1 and a blue. It's a 1/1 Constellation. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, you may have Protean Thaumaturge become a copy of target creature of another target creature, except it has this ability. You got Riptide Chimera for 2 and a blue. It's a 3/4 with flying. At the beginning of your upkeep, return an enchantment you control to its owner's hand. We got Sanctum Weaver for 1 and a green. It's a 0/2. You can tap to add X mana of any one color, where X is the number of enchantments you control. We got Setessan Champion for 2 and a green. It's a 1/3 Constellation. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on Setessan Champion and draw a card. We got Verduran Enchantress for 1 and 2 green. It's a 0/2. Whenever you play an enchantment spell, you may draw a card. Got Weaver of Harmony for 1 and a green. It is a 2/2. Other enchantment creatures you control get +1/+1. And for 1 green, you can tap this to copy target activated or triggered ability you control from an enchantment source. You may choose new targets for the copy. And then finally, we have Yargle and Multani for 3, 2 black, and a green is an 18/6. Okay, next up is going to be instants. Starting with Beast Within. For 2 and a green, you can destroy target permanent. Just target permanent, and its controller gets a 3/3 beast token. Got Counterspell for 2 blue, counter target spell. Got Heroic Intervention for 1 and a green. Permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. We got Negate for 1 and a blue, counter target non-creature spell. Then we got Putrefy for 1, a black and a green. Destroy target artifact or creature. It can't be regenerated. Next up, we're going to take a look at sorceries. Starting with Asinine Antics for 2 and 2 blue, you may cast Asinine Antics as though it had flash. If you pay 2 more to cast it, for each creature your opponents control, create a cursed roll token attached to that creature. We have Cultivate for 2 and a green. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards. Reveal those cards. Put 1 onto the battlefield tapped and 1 into your hand. Then shuffle your library. Got Farseek for 1 and a green. Search your library for a plains, island, swamp, or mountain card. Put that onto the battlefield tapped and then shuffle. And then we got Rampant Growth for 1 and a green. Search your library for a basic land card. Put that card onto the battlefield tapped and then shuffle. Next up is Artifacts. Starting with Arcane Signet. It costs 2. You can tap it to add 1 mana of any color of your commander's color identity. We got Helm of the Gods for 1. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each enchantment you control. Equipped for 1. We got Nettle Cyst for 3. It is Living Weapon, and equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact and or enchantment you control. Equips for 2. Then we got Soul Ring, costs 1. You can tap it to add 2 colors to your mana pool. Next up is going to be the enchantments, the biggest part of the deck here. We sacrificed a lot of slots in the instant sorceries and artifacts to have this stack of enchantments. So we're going to start with an Abundant Growth. It costs 1. It's an enchant land. When Abundant Growth enters the battlefield, draw a card, and enchanted land has tap to add 1 mana of any color. Got Ancestral Mask for 2 and a green. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 for each other enchantment on the battlefield. We have Aqueous Form for 1 blue. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature can't be blocked, and whenever enchanted creature attacks, scry 1. We have Audacity for 1 green. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+0 and has trample. When Audacity is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, draw a card. We got Bear Umbra for 2 and 2 green. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and has, whenever this creature attacks, untap all lands you control, and it has totem armor. We have Combat Research for 1 blue. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature has, whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card, and as long as enchanted creature is legendary, it gets +1/+1 and has ward 1. We have Curiosity for 1 blue. If enchanted creature damages an opponent, you draw a card. We have Eel Umbra for 1 and a blue. It has flash. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and it has totem armor. We have Enchantress's Presence for 2 and a green. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, draw a card. We have Fertile Ground for 1 and a green. Enchant land. Whenever an enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional 1 mana of any color. Got Frogify for 1 and a blue. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a blue frog creature with base power and toughness 1/1. We got Imprisoned in the Moon for 1 and a blue. Enchant creature, land, or planeswalker. Enchanted permanent is a colorless land with tap, add colorless, and loses all other card types and abilities. We got Kazmina's Transmutation for 1 and a blue. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and has power and toughness 1/1. We got Kaya's Ghost Form for 1 black. Enchant creature or planeswalker you control. When enchanted permanent dies or is put into exile, return that card to the battlefield under your control. We got Keen Sense for 1 green. Enchant creature. When enchanted creature deals damage to an opponent, you may draw a card. We got Kenrith's Transformation for 1 and a green. Enchant creature. When Kenrith's Transformation enters the battlefield, draw a card. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a green elk creature with base power and toughness 3/3. We got Leyline Immersion for 3 and a green. Enchant legendary creature. Enchanted creature has ward 2 and tap, add 5 mana in any combination of colors. Spend this mana only to cast spells. Got Necrogen Communion for 1 and a black. Enchant creature you control. Enchanted creature has Toxic 2, and when enchanted creature dies, return that card to the battlefield under your control. Got Nurgle's Rot for 1 black. Enchant creature an opponent controls. When enchanted creature dies, return Nurgle's Rot to its owner's hand. You may create a 1/3 black demon creature token named Plaguebearer of Nurgle. We got Overgrowth for 2 and a green. Enchant land. When enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional 2 green. We got Rancor for 1 green. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+0 and trample. And when Rancor is put into a graveyard from play, return it to its owner's hand. We got Seal of Primordium for 1 and a green. Sacrifice Seal of Primordium. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. We got Shielding Plaques for 2 and a hybrid green-blue. Enchant creature. When Shielding Plaques comes into play, draw a card. Enchanted creature can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control. Got Shimmering Wings for 1 blue. Enchanted creature has flying, and for 1 blue, you can return Shimmering Wings to its owner's hand. Got Snake Umbra for 2 and a green. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has whenever this creature deals damage to an opponent, you may draw a card. It has Totem Armor. Got Stasis Field for 1 and a blue. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature has base power and toughness 0/2, has Defender, and loses all other abilities. Got the Bath Song for 3 and a blue. It's a saga. Chapter 1 and 2 says draw 2 cards, then discard a card. Chapter 3 says shuffle any number of target cards from your graveyard into your library, add 2 blue. Got Utopia Sprawl for 1 green. Enchant Forest. As Utopia Sprawl enters the battlefield, choose a color. Whenever Enchanted Forest is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional 1 mana of the chosen color. Got Vesuvan Duplimancy for 3 and a blue. Whenever you cast a spell that targets only a single artifact or creature you control, create a token that's a copy of that artifact or creature, except it's not legendary. Got Whip Silk for 1 green. Enchanted creature may block as though it had flying. And for 1 green, you can return Whip Silk to its owner's hand. Got Wild Growth for 1 green. Enchant land. Whenever enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional green. Got Witness Protection for 1 blue. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a green-white citizen creature with base power and toughness 1/1 named Legitimate Business Person. Got Wolfwillow Haven for 1 and a green. Enchant land. Whenever enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds 1 additional green. And for 4 and a green, you can sacrifice Wolfwillow Haven to create a 2/2 green wolf creature token. Activate this ability only during your turn. Okay, and then finally, or not finally, next up we're going to look at non-basic lands. Starting with Bojuka Bog. Enters tapped. When Bojuka Bog enters the battlefield, exile all cards from target player's graveyard. Taps for black. We have Command Tower. You can add 1 mana of any color of your commander's color identity. We got Evolving Wilds. You can sacrifice it to search your library for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield tapped. You have Exotic Orchard. You can tap it to add 1 mana of any color that a land your opponent's controls could produce. We got Llanowar Wastes, which is a pain land for black-green. We got Morphic Pool, which is a crowd land for blue-black. We've got Opulent Palace, which is a triome for black-green-blue. We have Rejuvenating Springs, which is a crowd land for blue-green. We have Reliquary Tower. You have no maximum hand size, and you can tap it for colorless. We've got Rivendell. It enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a legendary creature. You can tap it for blue. You can pay 1 and a blue and tap it to scry 2, and you can only activate that ability if you have a legendary creature. We got Sunken Hollow, which is a check land for blue-black and has basic land typings. We have Temple of Malady, which is a scry land for black-green. We have Temple of Mystery, which is scry land for green-blue. We have Undergrowth Stadium, which is a crowd land for black-green. We have Yavimaya Coast, which is a pain land for green-blue. And we have Zagoth Triome, which is a Triome for black, green, blue. It has basic land typings, and you can cycle it for 3. Next up, we're going to look at basic lands. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 forests, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 islands, and 1, 2, 3 swamps. Okay, so that is Tatsunari Toad Rider. The idea here is to jam out really cheap enchantments. I built this auras, so everything in here, most of the enchantments in here are auras. You want to jam out a bunch of really cheap auras. Some of these auras have ways to return to your hand, like Nurgle's Rot, Shimmering Wings, Whip Silk, and Rancor. We have other cards in here, like the Chimera, that allow you to bounce enchantments back to your hand. We have things like Vesuvian Duplimancy, so that we can copy Kaimi and get lots of value from his trigger. And basically, we're trying to drain out our opponents using Kaimi, but also use Tatsunari's ability to get a pseudo evasion going so that we can swing in with our Tatsunari and our frogs without having to be worried about blocking. Yargle and Multani is in here as a frog that Tatsunari can target, and since it's an 18/6, that's a pretty big body. You also have Grolnok in here that gives value to attacking frogs in the form of allowing you to play lands and permanents from exile that have croak counters on them, and since most of the deck is permanents, that happens more often than not. It also gives you extra options throughout the course of the game to utilize that you wouldn't normally see if you were just using your hand. So that is Tatsunari Toad Rider. Very interesting auras deck. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave those down below. And I think that's it, guys. Until next time. Peace.